Hello everyone, my name is James Schlebusch. I'm part of the class of 2008 and I'm joined here by Greg Royce for a fireside chat this evening, and we just want to welcome you all, and we look forward to sharing with you a bit about Greg's legacy that he's left here at the school and the remarkable impact that he's had on so many of our lives. Welcome, Greg.
Oh, thank you.
Cheers, it's wonderful to see you here. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
This is very special.
26 years at St. Peter's, eh? That's a proper amount of time, eh? It's amazing.
It's gone by in a flash.
Sure.
Yeah, it really has.
I should imagine it's very hard to sort of sum up all those memories in a few lines, but I mean, just to look on my way into the school here, all the development that's gone on, and just to think back to when I started here in 2001. I mean, the what is now the girls' prep used to be the boarding house, and there was still a diving board at the pool, and now the school is not quite unrecognizable, but there's Mvukazan, there's all these wonderful new facilities, the school's expanded, now the boys can have their sisters here. I'm sure some of the grade 7s are grateful that there's now girls on the campus. I should imagine that's had its own fair of challenges, trying to mold the two schools together. How has it been, the journey?
There was a lot of opposition. I'll move into the girls' school and start there. It's interesting. There was a lot of opposition, understandably, from the older staff and quite a few of the old boys when we started to talk about it and we put our plans into action. But the fact is that our boarding numbers dropped exponentially shortly after I arrived. As I arrived, they were dropping. So we'd gone from 140 boarders. The older boarders will remember those numbers, with Jimmy Benson and Ferber Nothard running the boarding houses, Waveney and Founders. And they were about 40 strong when I arrived. And then the following year, they dropped again. So we closed Waveney. We kept Founders going. Ferber carried on as the border house master. And then those numbers dropped further. And we couldn't, in all conscience, maintain that enormous building and the kitchen and so on for the handful of boarders that remained. So at the same time, I was very keen to bring in more bursary students, little black guys that hadn't had the same advantages that we have had. So I formed alliances with the Gauteng Cricket Board. In fact, I think it might have been the Transvaal Cricket Board when we first started, but the Gauteng Cricket Board. And I went into the townships because there were schemes going on where they trained cricket coaches, the board trained cricket coaches, and set up little academies, if you like, in Alex and in Soweto. And so I used to go there on the afternoons when they had practice and then watch them. And then ask the coaches who they thought would cope in a school like ours and who would be bright and would be able to manage. And so we started to pick up these youngsters, and they had gone into the boarding house. So they had to. They lived far away. They couldn't commute every day. Very difficult for them. But that's another story. So we moved boarding down to the garages on the edge of Feathers.
I remember I had spent 2 weeks there because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do boarding for high school, and I went in there, and I think it was Vaughan van Zyl was running the boarding house at the time. Yeah, dead right. And then the boarding house stood empty, although Ferber still lived on one side and Jimmy on the other. And we knew we had to do something. We couldn't just leave it. So we thought of all sorts of things. Would we open offices in there and for rent, a remedial school, and so on? And eventually we decided on a girls' school. After a lot of thought, we thought, and we had quite a demand from parents. They often asked us. They wanted a similar product for the girls as the boys had. Something about this school makes it so special. So we built the girls' school, and as I say, there was a lot of opposition. When the school opened, there's this apocryphal tale about Newlands. So Trish Attlee was the first head, and she's not fond of cricket. Despite having her boys
cricketing sons, and there was no way she was going to offer cricket up there. So she announced that she was going to remove the cricket pitch, and so that it would be the wicket, so that it would be the field would be available to girls. Oh, by the way, at the same time, we were very sensitive to the fact that Newlands was such a highly regarded field.
What was the flagship field of the school?
Exactly, yeah. So we knew we had to replace it. And so there was the McClarty property next door to us. And some developers, if you drive past the school, you'll see Bryanbrook, the development on the corner of Witkoppen and Main. They were after it. They wanted to continue that development all the way around onto Greef Road, which means we would have, Greef Road would have been an access point for the people who lived in there. So we were very worried about that. I mean, having all these cars up and down Greef Road, we would lose control of the safety aspect for the children. Besides which, we would have loved that piece of land. And thank God at the time we had a former parent, Wilfred Mole, on the board, whose sons had been through St. Peter's. And when we discussed it at the board, at council, he was horrified to hear that that could happen. So he got together with his boys and they rustled up the money and bought so we could buy the McClarty property. And that's believe fantastic. Me, it wasn't a small sum.
No, I'm sure.
In those days, yeah. There were definitely 6 noughts involved.
Sure.
So we bought it. And then we spent weeks designing that field so that we could not just replace Mvukuzan, Newlands, but we could actually better it. And it's actually a larger field. It doesn't look like it because it's sunken, but it's bigger. It's quite a bit bigger than Newlands, and it has that magnificent clubhouse.
The pavilion is spectacular.
Yeah. And we named it Mvukuzan, which is the Zulu word for mole, after the mole family, because they were adamant they didn't want recognition. They were wonderful from that point of view.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then to continue the story, go back to the removal of the wicket. I hope I'm not telling you stuff that you don't.
No. I love hearing the history, and I'm sure many of the old boys are fascinated by how the school has changed since they were here. I know many of the old boys don't often come back and visit, so it's wonderful to hear a bit of the context to the developments that have gone on here. So thank you for sharing with us.
Good. So the news got out that the wicket was going to be removed, and it was to be removed on a Saturday. So we have a superb grounds team, self-taught, one of the best in the country. It's a little BEE company that we set up, and the owner, or the CEO, Muguchi Muchachari, is now phoned from all over the country for advice.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, he's even had calls from the Wanderers about wickets.
Sure.
Anyway, so when he arrived on Saturday morning with his crew, because he was going to save all the bully from that wicket, not just chuck it away, he was going to save it. He found squares had been cut out of it overnight. So people had come, old boys had come, and removed chunks of the wicket. And we heard later that there are some bars in Joburg in private homes, and with a little glass box with a piece of turf, and it's watered every day. Whether it's true or not, that's what we heard.
Wow.
So the journey, that was the girls' school. You mentioned the diving board. I'll just pop that in.
Yes.
After all the years we had, the diving board was up there. I mean, it was really a feature of the school. Everybody loved it. The boys absolutely loved it.
I remember with great fondness, particularly in the summer months when it was really hot. There was a teacher, I think Pam Schoon, used to take us out. She would say, okay, don't tell anyone. Let's sneak off to the pool quietly and we'll go take a dip there and you guys can cool off because it's really hot today. And I know English is not quite your guys' strong point when it's 35 degrees. And it was fantastic. I mean, those are some of the highlights of my time at St. Peter's. It was wonderful.
Yeah. And dive bombing off that. And the boys were always good. So I don't know how many years it was up there. It must have been at least 30 years.
Yeah.
And then we had this idiot child, oops, he fell off onto the concrete and broke his leg spectacularly, to the extent that the bone was protruding. Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. So as an exco, we got together and we thought, should we, shouldn't we, what should we do? We talked about placing railings around to prevent people from falling off. We thought of all sorts of things. At the time, there were 2 quite well publicized court cases, where parents were suing schools for injuries that their children had sustained. And in both cases, the schools lost and they were forced to pay out enormous sums of money and so on and so forth. So we deliberated for a long time, and then eventually we decided to remove it. That coincided with the extension of that pool as well. We revamped it, so we did it at the same time. But I should tell you that the chairman at the time, Simon Oliver, and many of the governors were very angry with us. They said that we were wusses. We should have just left it in there. And to this day, when I speak to Simon, every now and then he'll remind me about,
Sure.
You wuss.
But it's no easy feat running a school in today's age. I know there's a lot of controversy and a lot of difference of opinions from the various groups of parents and student bodies. And I take my hat off to you, and I know you've done a lot of time and effort into the St. Peter's Council, and I know you've got a big heart and very caring and a soft nature, and I know a lot of those times you've had to sort of come up to the plate and make some tough calls, and I think the school and the community are very grateful for all the love and commitment and sacrifice that you've put into the school, and how you've so graciously served this community. And on behalf of all of us, I would like to say thank you for your tremendous amount of love and time in that. Thank you.
Jeez,
thank you.
Jamesy, man, that's rich. That's rich coming from you. Because I recall when you were in grade 7, you showed one hell of a lot of love and effort when you did that shoe collection. I don't know how many hundreds of pairs of shoes, all on your own. You stood up in chapel and motivated that to go to children who didn't have the same as we had. And that didn't come from a teacher, it came just from you. That was absolutely amazing. That for me epitomizes the St. Peter's spirit. That's what the boys are like.
Thank you. Just to give you guys some context, when I was in grade 7, we had done some community outreach. I think Mrs. Duffield at the time had organized it, and we would go to these places and we would go help these kids at these schools that were less privileged than us, and they didn't have any shoes. So I thought, well, let's try and I'm sure we can help them. And I remember approaching Greg about it and chatting it through, and thank you for providing a platform and enabling me to have the facilities to reach out in the newsletter and to talk to the boys at the time. And I know that's something that's really resonated with me at my time at St. Peter's, is the fact that if a student had an idea or something and they would share it with you, firstly you were welcoming of their idea and you were passionate with them, you got excited about their idea with them, and then you supported them in their idea. When they would sometimes tell their parents and they might say, oh no, it's not a great idea, or maybe it's not the best time to do this now, you were the one who would believe in them. And for many of the kids that means so much to them, and I think that's what makes this environment so welcoming and fostering almost self-belief in the fact that you can come with ridiculous ideas and you will still treat it with sincerity and care and say that you believe in it and encourage the child to pursue it. And I think a lot of the teachers are also like that at St. Peter's, and that's what makes it such a caring and welcome environment. And I thank you to you and all the staff for loving your children in the sense that you want them to better themselves, or to, if they have an idea, to better society. You encourage them to pursue that. And I think that really raises sort of the leaders of tomorrow and people that go out into their high schools and into varsities and the broader business community or wherever they may be around the world, and they take that self-belief that they got instilled right from an early age, and it really equips them for life. One of the other things was we used to have a school-wide market day, and there would be a trophy for which business made the most profit. And nowadays I probably wouldn't be able to do it, but back then I had a ridiculous idea of selling goldfishes, which actually worked phenomenally well, and I ended up winning the prize for the most profitable business. But I had 30 goldfish that I went and sold. I got my mother to go and collect them from the local pet store. The only thing was I didn't think it through, because we had sport that afternoon. Now all these kids came around and bought the goldfish and left it at the side of the field while they played cricket, and obviously I would say probably about 80% of the goldfishes passed away. But it was such a success that I sent my mom off to go and buy another 30 goldfish, and we sold out of all of them. And just little things like that just foster a creative mindset, and It's just fantastic. And I'm sure you've got many other initiatives that over the years you've developed. I know you're big on a spirit of adventure. When I was at prep school, we used to have the dads and lads camp out, and that was always lots of fun. And I remember going off to Michalisburg with you and John Huggett for an afternoon hike one time. I think one of the families had a piece of land out there, and we went and spent an afternoon out there, and we had a braai. And just those little spur of the moment things that you don't let the grass grow green under your feet. You capitalize on them, and it's fantastic. It's so refreshing to see somebody so eager to make the most out of life.
Yeah, Andrew Bench was wonderful at taking people away, taking the boys away.
That,
he was incredible.
Yeah, no, Andrew Bench was special. I know he organized some tours off to the US, and it was really fantastic. So I just want to encourage you, wherever you go into your next phase of life, to take that passion that you have for people and your kind and tender heart, and don't let it fall away. You've got so much opportunity to still make a difference. I know your time here at St. Peter's is coming to an end, and we just want to wish you all the very best for what life has in store for you in the next chapters. And us as the Old Boys community and the broader St. Peter's community, we just want to express our love and appreciation for all that you've done for us.
Thank you,
Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.